All right, hi everyone. I guess we can get started. To all those watching either on Zoom or if you see this on Facebook. If you are watching via the live stream on Facebook and you'd like to actually um, participate through the chat or type in questions or feedback, we'd ask that you go to the town's website and find the agenda and join the Zoom link through there. And then that would give you the option to ask any questions through the chat feature in Zoom that I have on my other screen here. And I'll be trying to monitor that throughout the presentation to see if anyone has any questions as we go along. And then there'll be a more extended comment period after the presentation. So the reason that we are doing this presentation is to talk about the concept of a village residential overlay district. So if you, this is sort of part 2 of a community outreach series, presentation series based around some zoning changes that we're looking at in the medium density residential and sort of in-town area surrounding the downtown to promote more opportunities for housing, more affordable housing, more kind of walkable area closer to the existing services in town. So on last Thursday, we talked about a kind of general lot reduction, minimum lot size reduction in the medium density residential district. So that would have applied to pretty much the whole medium density district. This village residential overlay district is a little more specific, and it's not automatically generally applied. It's something that is more of an optional approach that people can take advantage of if they're interested in it. And if not, then it's something that you can use if you want, and if you don't want and you want to continue operating your property as is, that's that would work too. But as we get into it, first I'll start off by just talking a little bit about what is an overlay zoning district. So in general, a zoning district is an area that has certain standards and allows certain uses and activities to take place in town. So our base zoning districts are things like the medium density residential district or the village commercial, which is our downtown, or commercial 1 along Stillwater Ave. So these are the base zoning districts. But then we have these things called overlay zoning districts, which, as the name kind of indicates, they go over the base zone. And it applies a different layer of standards or criteria to look at aside from the base zone. In some cases, they are optional, as the one we'll be talking about here tonight. And in some cases, they're not. So some examples of existing overlay zoning districts in the town would be one, the aquifer protection overlay. So that's not an optional overlay district. It just provides some additional standards and review criteria for properties that are in that area to protect groundwater resources. Another example of an existing overlay district would be the Stillwater Avenue overlay district. And for instance, that one is an optional district. Along Stillwater Ave, there's a stretch where the base zone is low density residential district, but there's an overlay there that allows for certain commercial uses to take place because of the kind of traffic and scale of Stillwater Ave. It allows some low impact commercial uses to take place, even though it's primarily a residential area. So when you look at the zoning map, as we move on here, you can get the pointer up. You can see that this kind of beigeish color indicates the base zone of the LDR, low density district, and this red outline around Stillwater indicates the area where the overlay is. So all those lots inside there would be able to participate in the overlay district there if they wanted to, but if not, they can continue to operate with the low density residential standards. And that's sort of the same thing as what we're talking about here. So the comprehensive plan, adopted in 2015, sort of had a vision of taking different steps to assure that in-town zoning creates the opportunity for affordable home ownership, especially for families with school-aged children. So the comprehensive plan acknowledged that there was some available housing at the time, but a lot of it was in subdivisions with larger lot sizes west of the interstate. So this is further away from town, meaning people are more likely to be driving. Larger lot sizes create higher land values and can lead to larger homes, which obviously cost more. So it was a real goal of the comprehensive plan to kind of find ways to create more opportunities in town for new housing opportunities, but at the same time recognizing that Orono obviously has a very large rental housing population, and creating a way so that whatever approach was taken in creating more housing wasn't just completely overwhelmed by rentals, that it still allowed for some room for home ownership and owner-occupied housing. So the purpose of the Village Residential Overlay District was just that, is to provide an option to create smaller, more affordable lots in the medium density residential district that are close proximity to existing town services and utilities, while still creating or maintaining a residential neighborhood feel. So, that part is really key. It's finding this balance where it's not just increasing the density to let more houses go in. It's increasing the density, with certain standards in place to make sure that whatever new housing goes in fits in and sort of matches some existing neighborhoods and the rest of the community. So, the goal is creating more housing opportunities, smaller lots, with smaller homes can lead to more affordable housing opportunities. It also would potentially allow for more conversion of single family homes to two-family homes. And, in doing all this, it kind of builds on our existing walkability, public transportation, and other infrastructure in town. Roads don't have to extend as far, services don't have to extend as far, which all lead to kind of more efficient uses of those services. So this is a map of the potential village residential boundaries. This is what was recommended as guidance in the comprehensive plan. This is subject to change and adjustments through conversation with the public and town council, but this was the general boundaries that were taken away from the community outreach done through the comprehensive plan. So you have the overlay district going south to about Hamlin Street, just before Sailor neighborhood. You have east of the Village Commercial, you have west going up Forest Ave to Shadbush Lane, and on Bennick to Noyes Drive, and then north into the Webster neighborhood. So this would be, when we looked back at that example of the Stillwater Avenue overlay, and we saw that, outline around those lots, this would be the area that was outlined, and all the lots in this area would be able to to use this kind of optional overlay if it applied to them. Again, the goal was to, kind of be within walking distance of the downtown area and the schools for, the various residential neighborhoods around them. So if you look more closely at the lots in that area, it's about 500 lots with an average square footage, average lot size of 31,242 square feet. So that, if you look at the average, it doesn't really give a completely accurate picture because, if we go back, you can see some larger lots in the area. Look at lots like this, some of the ones around, going off of Main Street. Lots like that can, skew the average. So if you look at the median square footage of the lots in that area, it comes down to about 14,000 square feet. And, in our, meeting that we had last week talking about lot size in the MDR district, right now our minimum lot size in the MDR is 20,000 square feet. So you can see that this median lot size is, fairly, lower than that, and that's even with some of those bigger lots, making it a little higher. And so then if you take a look at those 500 lots and you break it down to, over under 10,000 square feet, you get about 30% of those 500 lots are under 10,000 square feet. So now you're talking, 30% are decently under the existing minimum lot sizes. So the point here is that there are already existing lots in the medium density residential district that are well under our existing zoning standards. These lots are currently considered to be grandfathered lots. They're allowed to continue to operate and exist, but you wouldn't be able to recreate those right now, even though in a lot of our neighborhoods, these lots exist and people are perfectly okay with those lots existing and they think they contribute to good neighborhoods. So moving on to how exactly this overlay district, this village residential overlay district would work in practice. So, first it would be available to those lots that we just talked about, the lots that are otherwise in the MDR district and that are within kind of walking distance, roughly walking distance, obviously that depends on the person, to the downtown area. It applies only to lots with public sewer and water. Obviously, as you start to get into lots without public sewer and water, there are additional standards and state laws as far as minimum lot size and things like that. So this applies to just those lots. And third, and again, very important to keep in mind, is that it's completely optional. Property owners can continue to abide by the existing medium density residential standards if they want to. If they have no desire to utilize a smaller lot size on their lot, if they, maybe their property in the MDR is a rental property, and we're talking more about owner-occupied housing here, then they can choose to just ignore this and continue to operate as they have been. So, but if you want to qualify for this density bonus, then the biggest thing that it would entail would be a property owner includes a restriction within the deed of the property that permanently requires the dwelling unit to be owner occupied. So that's similar to something we do right now with our accessory dwelling units. If you wanted an accessory dwelling unit right now, they're allowed accessory to single family homes. But part of that is you create an agreement that's recorded at the Registry of Deeds saying that it's going to be owner occupied. And what that does is just it really is that the balance. You're allowing for the higher density to take place, but you're also kind of reassuring the community that that density will be used to achieve the goal and the issue that you've identified, rather than just creating more opportunities for lots and lots of new rentals to go into place. And finally, so when after you create that deed restriction and you're able to use these new lot dimension requirements, the increased density can potentially allow for either new lots being created or conversions of existing single-family homes into two-family homes. And we'll get into a little bit more how that works as we move on. All right. Does anyone have any questions so far? Take a minute to just look at the chat, see if anything comes in. So we move on to a little bit more of the specifics and look at the actual dimensional requirements that would go into this overlay district. So as I mentioned previously, the medium density residential district right now has a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. There is a kind of proposal through the comprehensive plan in combination with what we're talking about here tonight to reduce that minimum lot size in the MDR to 15,000 square feet. But either way, 20 or 15,000 square feet would be the kind of base minimum lot size in the medium density residential district. What the Village Residential proposes is a minimum lot area of 7,500 square feet. So that would be the amount of area, lot size needed to create a legal lot. So if you were dividing off a big chunk of land into a lot and you wanted to build a single family home, you need at least 7,500 square feet. But in addition to that, you have minimum lot area per dwelling unit. So let's say you are interested in a two-family home, like a duplex. So the lot area per dwelling unit right now in the MDR is the same as the regular lot area. So you have to basically double the lot size in the MDR currently for a two-family home. The proposal here would be that the minimum lot area per dwelling unit in the Village Residential would be 5,000 square feet. So, if you think of, someone interested in constructing a two-family home or converting their single-family home into a two-family home, right now in the MDR, you would need 40,000 square feet, so almost an acre of land to have a two-family home in the MDR. With the Village Residential overlay, you would only need 10,000 square feet to have that same two-family. Now, however, we're talking about the kind of owner occupancy. Obviously, a two-family home, you can't have two dwelling units both owner occupied because there can only really be one owner. So only one of the units in that case would have to be owner occupied. Moving on to street frontage. Right now, the MDR, the base zone requires a minimum of 100 feet of frontage for a lot. So that's really what guides the size and the shape of the lots between the overall lot size and the lot frontage or lot width. The Village Residential, the proposal would be to have it as 60 feet of frontage be the requirement. However, the setback requirements would stay the same. So right now in the MDR, you need a 20-foot front setback, 10-foot sides, and 20-foot rear setback. So that would be, the distance your structure had to be from the lot lines. And, I should mention that, while this overlay district talks about adjusting the dimensional requirements of lots, it doesn't have anything to do with the uses allowed in the district. So right now in the medium density residential district, it's primarily a single family district. Right, Jeff, I'll get to your comment in 1 second. It's primarily a single family district, and it also allows for 2-family structures as well in the MDR. Multi-family structures are not an allowable use in the medium density residential district. So multifamily is any one structure with 3 or more units inside of it, so more apartment type. And that would continue to be true in the village residential. So multifamily would still not be an allowable use. Okay, so Jeffrey in the comments in the chat asked, does the owner occupancy requirement persist upon resale or inheritance? So yeah, the owner occupancy requirement would go along with the deed, which goes along with the land. So the one way that you would be able to sort of get around that would be if you were using the overlay more so for converting a single family to a 2-family, because you could always convert it back to a single family, most likely. So, let's say right now you had a 15,000 square foot lot with a single family home. Under our current standards, you wouldn't be able to create a 2-family home there. But under this overlay, you would be able to convert it into a 2-family home. If you eventually want to sell your property, but you don't want to sell it with that owner occupancy restriction on it, then you would simply have to kind of convert those changes you made from single to 2-family. You'd have to convert the 2-family back to a single family so that it became a legal lot again. Because yeah, if you wanted to sell the 2-family, to someone who's going to rent out both units, then that wouldn't meet the standards anymore, and it would no longer be considered a legal lot. Now, it does become a little harder. Let's say you have, we'll get a little more into examples and visual examples of the lots so people can, have a better kind of visual representation of some of these things. But, let's say that you had a larger lot and you wanted to kind of divide off a piece of land. So, leaving yourself only 10,000 square feet for your existing home. And so you wrote it into the deed that it was going to be owner occupied, and that allowed you to make that division. And now your home is only on 10,000 square feet. If that was the case, then you would need to sell the home to an owner occupant. That property wouldn't be allowed to be, non-owner occupied. It couldn't just be a rental. So that's obviously, would be a fairly important decision that someone would have to make upfront. So we were talking about, these dimensional standards that would apply to the village residential district. And we talked a little bit before about, the existing lots, 30% of the 500 lots this district would apply to are under 10,000 square feet. So I think it's important to recognize that, this isn't necessarily a huge jump from what's existing in town. Our current MDR district has a wide range of lots, from 5,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet to multiple acres. Just because our current minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet doesn't mean that was always the standard. And as neighborhoods develop over time, certain neighborhoods you see trends in certain lot sizes generally. So these are just a couple examples to show that, this 5 to 10,000 square foot range for lots, in some places in the MDR is already existing, and, part of established neighborhoods in town. So on the left, we have Middle Street, and you can see, looking at, this is our tax map, overlaid some satellite imagery here. So, you have some frontages, 60 feet of frontage there, 70 here. So sort of, consistent with what we're proposing in the Village Residential District. So although it's a decrease from, our current MDR district, there are examples and sort of precedent of this sort of lot existing in town. And then, if you look at the right-hand side here on Myrtle Street, there's a wide range of lot sizes. On the right-hand side of the street here, from our view, there's some smaller lots in that 4,000 to 5,000 square foot range. And then on the left, you have, 13,000 square foot lot. And, at the end, there's, a 2-acre lot. So it just sort of shows that, when we're talking about something like an optional overlay district like this, where maybe one person on a street takes advantage of it and someone else doesn't, these situations where streets have, some bigger lots, some smaller lots, are already, fairly common in town. So we talked a little bit about some of the standards for development that would apply to the Village Residential Overlay. So any existing standards that apply in general to the medium density district or all over town, all of those standards would still apply. These here that we're talking about are really in addition to those. So number one, obviously the biggest one would be the restriction requiring that the property be owner occupied. And as I mentioned before, if it's a 2-family structure, then at least one of the units would need to be owner occupied. However, when we talk about the main goal of this overlay district being to provide more opportunities for home ownership and new housing opportunities, but by converting single-family homes into 2-family homes and having it be required that one unit is owner occupied, that does leave the second unit available for rental opportunities. So I think a kind of secondary benefit, of this overlay is that it does almost operate in a kind of strengthened accessory dwelling unit fashion. It gives existing property owners who own single-family homes the option to convert much, more easily into 2-family homes. And that second unit could be, used for, grad students or an older family member you want to move in and take care of, or, anyone. But, keeping that in mind that, you now have this potential for more rental opportunities. And obviously, we live in a unique community where we're balancing providing housing for students and mixing a lot of rentals in with primarily owner-occupied residential neighborhoods, and the kind of balance that needs to come along with that. In the base medium density residential zone, you're allowed to have 3 unrelated people in any dwelling unit. So if you're all related and a family, that counts as one person. But if you're just, 2 friends who have, no relation or real connection other than being friends, well, then you would count as 2 people. So a normal rental in the MDR right now, you can have 3, unrelated people. So maybe you have a brother and sister, that counts as 1. And then, you have 2 other people that they know. So that's your, you have 4 people in the house, but 3 unrelated people still. So the standard though for the overlay district would be reducing that number to 2 unrelated people. And the idea again is to make sure that that this incentive is used to accomplish the goal that it was meant to accomplish. This, wasn't meant to just be a way to allow higher density rental opportunities or allow, conversions of owner-occupied homes into rentals. It was really meant to provide more owner-occupied housing, but at the same time, as a side, it does allow for the potential of some more rental opportunities. But then, putting some standards in place to limit some of those potential impacts that could come along with those rentals, noise, traffic issues, parking, things like that. Oops, sorry about that. So the last, standard that really would apply here, different than the normal zoning standards, would be talking about minimum parking requirements. So normally right now in the MDR, any new dwelling unit is required to provide 3 parking spaces. So that's 3 spaces per dwelling unit. So a single family home would have to provide 3 spaces. A 2-family home would have to provide 6 spaces. But the whole goal of this, village overlay is that you're providing more housing closer to town, closer to all the services, public transport, access to, the bus routes, more walkability. So we wanted to reduce that minimum parking requirement to 1 space per dwelling unit if that unit has, is a studio or a 1-bedroom, and 2 spaces if the dwelling unit has 2 or more bedrooms. This way, you're still making sure that there's some, parking available, as, in many cases, on-street parking can be difficult, especially in the winter. But at the same time, recognizing that it's a goal of this to, have smaller lots closer to a lot of services, and that hopefully there won't be quite as much need for people to drive from these lots quite as often as, maybe if you were further away from town. So additionally, there are standards for subdivisions. So, these standards really apply to just, kind of individual houses or structures. But, what if someone has a bigger piece of land within this area and they're looking to create a subdivision where, each of the houses, would be required to have that owner occupancy restriction. But, in a lot of our neighborhoods in town, one of the biggest issues comes with dead-end streets. And while dead-end streets provide a certain amount of privacy and quiet that can oftentimes be beneficial to those living on the street, there are some drawbacks. A lack of connectivity, hurts utility connection, walkability, access for buses and plows and fire department, things like that. So there would be a requirement if anyone was to utilize these standards or this overlay district to create a subdivision, that streets would have to connect to another street every at least 750 feet. So you're forming a general kind of grid pattern and avoiding those dead end streets. Streets would also be required to include a sidewalk on at least one side with some vegetation and shade trees, again promoting more walkability, making that an easier and better experience for people. And also having access to some sort of open space or recreational area to the subdivision, by those residents. It doesn't have to be part of a subdivision, but it could just be access to a public park or a public space something like that. But making sure that, while you're creating a higher density, you're allowing for more houses to go in, that you're still maintaining those sort of, open space amenities, and kind of, visuals that go into, Orono and kind of creating the community that we have here. So the goal here with all these standards, this slide and the last one, is really to maintain a neighborhood feel consistent with our existing neighborhoods, while at the same time allowing for some, additional opportunities. So there's really two groups of, people who can utilize this. The first being owners of single family homes. So if you have over 10,000 square feet of lot area, and you're in this area, then you could most likely take part in this. If you wanted to put the owner occupied restriction on your property through your deed, you would be able to convert to a 2-family home. That can be useful for property owners. It can provide some flexibility as far as receiving some extra income. It could be useful, a lot of people have, maybe family members who they want to kind of move in that they can be closer to, but want separate spaces, things like that. Now, if you had, for instance, these, property owners of single family homes, you have, let's say 15,000 square feet of lot area or more and enough road frontage, there's potential, depending on, where the structure, your existing structure on your lot lies, potentially you could divide your lot, and you could create a second lot, which could be used for, someone else to build a single family home. Maybe you have more land than you really use or need. Maybe that could be an option for you. But again, then depending on, the size of both of those lots, there's the potential, if they're both under the MDR minimum lot size, if they both want to take part of the overlay district, that they would both individually need to be owner occupied. So again, it's always going to be a consideration with this of weighing, putting that restriction on the property while, creating that opportunity on the other side. The second group who could best utilize this would be any property owners looking to subdivide. In this case, subdivisions would be able to create double the amount of housing opportunities than subdivisions utilizing current standards in the medium density residential district. But again, along with that, yes, you're basically doubling the density, but there are additional standards that would go along with that, where, more of those houses are going to be owner occupied versus rentals. If there are rental units, they're going to be restricted to fewer numbers of people than what's currently allowed. So it's sort of a balance that any potential subdivider would have to weigh, really who their market is and what they're trying to achieve with their subdivision. But this would at the very least provide an option for them to consider. All right, so now kind of done with the text and the data, and we can move to some visual examples that will hopefully better kind of show what I've been trying to explain on some of these slides. So this is a neighborhood block in Webster neighborhood. Just satellite imagery showing kind of an overhead view of that existing area. And this is really just pointing out the kind of existing potential areas in town that could take advantage of something like this. So get my pointer. On the left, we have a lot here that's about 29,000 square feet. as we were just talking about, the house is situated so that it's, very, kind of far over to this one side of the lot. And the lot also happens to have frontage on 2 streets, making it easy to meet the frontage requirement for 2 lots. Because, this house can still get frontage on this street. And if you were to create another lot in this area towards the back of the lot, they could, receive their frontage on this side of the street. So this would be a perfect example. These corner lots where the house is kind of pushed to one side of the lot, that would be the perfect opportunity for a division of the lot, and an additional, single family home or something to be constructed. Over here on the, kind of across the way on Pond Street, you have an example of a, about 21,000 square foot lot. So while this lot has the lot size available to create 2 lots, you would really need 15,000 square feet, right? 7,500 square feet per lot. That minimum lot size is available for 2 lots, but the kind of orientation of the house makes it so that there's not really room to create that second lot. So in a situation like this, maybe they would be more interested in converting a single family home into a 2-family home. And again, these are just examples. Under the overlay district, anyone would be perfectly, if you want to keep your lot as a larger lot because you enjoy, the land that you have, that's, perfectly acceptable. And, this in no way requires anyone to do anything, but it would be an option for situations like that. All right, so moving on to some kind of graphic visualizations of what I've been talking about. These were, just some kind of street level models that we created to kind of replicate, a typical residential block like the one we were just looking at, but more so on the street level. So imagine, think of that lot, that residential block that we were just looking at overhead, where you have a lot here, this lot, frontage on 2 streets, has this space towards the back of the lot. Let's say it's a, 20,000 square foot lot. This is what it existed before. And then they were able to divide the lot and a new house was able to go in. Similarly here, again, you have this lot here with some extra space over here. The house is situated more so to one side. They were able to divide the lot and put, maybe this lot was, a little smaller than the lot originally existing. So they were able to put a smaller home over there. But again, providing that opportunity for someone who maybe isn't ready or doesn't have any desire to purchase a larger lot in an existing subdivision in town. Maybe they just want a smaller lot with a smaller home, and they're able to find a situation like this, and a property owner who is, interested in doing something like this. And, an arrangement is sort of, worked out to provide a benefit for everyone. So then if we look at kind of the overview of this model little neighborhood here, we can see that, here's our first example and here's our second example back here. By adding in those 2 houses, you still maintain the general feel of the neighborhood. You added a couple new housing opportunities for people, but it's really just extending and building upon the existing neighborhood and feel that already existed. You're not changing the character of this neighborhood so much that people aren't going to necessarily recognize, the area they live in anymore. So hopefully that helps to kind of visualize, some of the goals of this. And as far as people converting single family to 2-family homes, that could really happen without any structural changes at all. If people, maybe they're downsizing, or they recognize that, well, we have more space in our house than we really need. It could just involve some interior renovations, and then having a renter start coming in and occupying that space. It might not necessarily change the look to a neighborhood at all. So that sort of brings us to the end here of the presentation. In summary, this village residential overlay district is really entirely incentive based. It's a balance between these kind of standards that we were talking about and the higher level of density. And it's important for any property owner interested in something like this to weigh those things and to kind of think about what's best for them and their situation. Also important to remember that this is completely optional. Anyone in this area who wants to keep their lot exactly as is and continue to follow our existing MDR district standards is more than happy to do so. Two, this is aimed at providing additional housing opportunities at more affordable prices. It's focused on owner occupancy and home ownership, especially for families and within walking distance of downtown. But it also has the ability to provide those additional lower impact rental opportunities for those people not in a place where they want to own a home. And last, it's really just a balancing act of attempting to increase the density, but still maintaining that kind of character that comes along with our more traditional residential neighborhoods. So from here, I'm going to open it up to any comments and questions that people might have who are watching. But just in general, from here, what we plan to do is take any discussion feedback that we have here tonight, as well as people are welcome to contact me going forward about this. This will still be going through the back to town council for the committee meetings, as well as then it would have to go through the adoption process through planning board public hearings and council public hearings. So if anyone watches this at a later date on the website or at Facebook, you're welcome to send any comments and feedback my way, and we can report that when we have these conversations later on with the town council. So there's my contact info. It'll be part of this presentation that we'll be putting up on the website along with the video of this, so people can find that there. So now I'm going to stop my screen sharing. And I see that there are a few people in the chat. So I don't know if anyone has any other questions. I'm happy to answer any questions or hear what people think. Would this be something you're interested in? Do you see any particular issues arising that maybe we haven't identified or thought of? A lot of times, this is why we're doing this. People know their neighborhoods the best. You're in them all the time. And that's really why we want to reach out and hear what you have to say about this concept. So. All right, well, it looks like there are not any questions or additional comments coming in. So again, feel free to, if I don't know if I introduced myself at the beginning of the meeting. Sorry, it's a little different with the online meetings versus the in-person ones. My name is Kyle Drexler. I'm the town planner here in Orono. So if anyone has any comments or questions, you're welcome to contact me. and we can just have general conversation about what you think and how this might apply to your situation. Yeah, so with that, thanks everyone for attending or watching on Facebook or watching in the future. With that, we will end the meeting. Thank you.